happy holidays. Most people don't fall off because of food, because they missed a workout. They fall off because of their approach. Realistically, their mindset and even maybe the identity tied to that. What we're going to go over is how to actually utilize one simple strategy around the holidays, but overall, anytime there's a pattern disruption, and how simple it's going to be. It's simply called the 24-hour rule. Now, I'll give you some context where it came from, how we're going to apply it, and how effective and why we use it. So number one, I want to just go over the actual problem the 24-hour rule is going to address. It's realistically the all or nothing mindset that falls around. And I'm talking about this especially around the holidays. We have whatever the holiday is. Right now we have Passover and Easter coming up, but this applies to Christmas, 4th of July. You name the holiday, this mindset and basic principle is going to come into play, which is basically I'll start after the holiday. Then we find ourselves in a guilt experience. We spiral, and then we have to restart the whole system. We feel like we've lost everything. So the key here is you're not necessarily struggling with discipline. It's realistically you're missing a system, and specifically when a pattern disruption happens, what you are going to do when the system and pattern disruption is impacted. So right there, that was a pattern interrupt, right? I was talking, I stopped, I took a sip of water. We can use that same principle. What exactly is being utilized is a more or less pause. And I'm going to go over how the 24-hour rule applies to that and really what the 24-hour rule is. But before that, I want to kind of help give you somewhat of an identity shift here and just something to mull over. Okay, especially when it comes to my martial arts practitioners out there, my fighters out there, this is going to be something probably that resonates with you quite easily. But all of us, I think when you're watching this, whether you're watching this live or the replay, this will click if you just hear me out. So the idea is we won't just stop because life happens when it comes to a fighter mindset. That's why I originally called my first company Life of a Fighter. I was documenting my fight journey, but also it was a mindset I wanted to invite for all my health and wellness clients, was we're all fighting for something. And having that fighter mindset can be impactful. The trick is sometimes if we have too much of an identity attachment to one particular version, it can hold us back or it can accelerate us. We want to, again, invite an identity shift right now. What I want to invite for you guys is leveraging your inner fighter, being able to reframe how you look at yourself, how you relate to that idea of being a fighter. You're not just fighting in a ring, in a cage, you're fighting on a day-to-day basis. And what I mean by that specifically is being able to recognize, a lot of times when we associate fighters, there's an identity that they're resilient, they're disciplined, they're tough. These are all true things. We're actually quite vulnerable. And actually really what makes a fighter in my experience is how they show up, not in times of smoothness, but specifically how they show up in times of adversity. Not even if you're perfect. Like this is something I honestly fall into the all or nothing mindset quite a bit. I get to constantly rework this. I work with my own coach on reframing the all or nothing mindset. So let's tag this into the 24-hour rule. We actually pull. It's something I go over with my fighters. I've talked to Johnny Buck about this, the owner of Rogue Combat Club. He's talked about this in his own content. And many years ago, I invited this concept of the 24-hour rule. And again, it's not I invented this. This is something I regurgitated from my experience working with others. And the basic principle here is whenever one of our athletes would compete, a fighter would have some form of competition, I would invite the 24-hour rule. And what's up, y'all? I see you guys in the chat, in the comments. Again, please feel free to say, hey, I will have moments where I'll go into the Q&A. I'll go to the comments. I'll check in. But if I don't get to it right away, I promise you I will. I'll have different checkpoints along the way. And if you're not already, please follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share it. With that being said, though, getting into the 24-hour rule. With our fighters, when they would compete, whether they win or lose, they have a devastating knockout or they have an amazing victory, we would implement what I call the 24-hour rule. So they have 24 hours to cry, to celebrate, to party, to mourn, to do whatever, to eat whatever you want, to do whatever you want, to just live within, obviously, reason, within moral reason. But being able to have 24 hours where you can like eat, drink, party, sleep, not train, whatever. You can do 24 hours of whatever you want. But then usually fights would take place on a Saturday. So we would say, okay, 24 hours from Saturday. So all day Sunday, you do what you want. Monday morning rolls around. You are back to the system. we are back into our routine. And again, we may adjust that routine. If a fighter's injured, we are going to say, hey, you're not going to have the same training load, but you're going to be back in the gym. Even if you can't train, if you're injured, you have a concussion, I want to see you back in the gym. Even if you're just watching, taking notes, studying. Now, the caveat is if they're concussed, they don't want to be out in lights with loud noises. So we would slightly adjust this, obviously, given the severity of injury. But the basic principle applies. And basically, the idea of the 24-hour rule is to have a little bit of release. And the point of that, where that applies to even the holidays, is the holidays can be the pattern disruption that we want to create a 24-hour rule around. So let's say Easter Sunday or Passover, which is obviously tomorrow, or being able to have Hanukkah that's multiple days, or holidays that have one day or many days. You have your holiday experience. And also during this holiday experience, you're simultaneously doing the best that you can to implement a strategy. Whether that means we're working out, we're being mindful of what we're putting into our body, you have some sense of intentionality. This still goes back to the 4-aspect framework of awareness, intention, action, and accountability. So knowing that, we're going to have a sense of awareness into the holidays. And the intention is going to be able to rebound from a pattern disruption. And then ultimately the action we're going to take is the 24-hour rule. So you have, let's again say your holiday, you ate whatever, you even put on a couple pounds, whatever's going on there. You're going to allow yourself to have 24 hours to rebound. So Easter Sunday from 24 hours, Monday, cool. I'm going to let my body digest. I'm going to drink water. I'm going to fast. I'm going to do whatever, eat whatever, recalibrate. Come Tuesday, we're back into a routine. So utilize that 24-hour rule to be able to get back to a aspect of a routine in a system. Now, that doesn't have to be the same exact thing you did before the pattern disruption happened, but that's where the 24-hour rule comes into play. And that's, again, part of the system. And it's basically inviting a non-negotiable. It's something I've talked about in the past. Having non-negotiables becomes really impactful. And ideally, even having a non-negotiable for the holiday, for your travel, for your whatever the pattern disruption is. So let's say you're traveling, it's Easter, it's Passover, it's whatever the holiday, it's your birthday even, traveling for work. You're saying, hey, I don't care what's going down. I'm going to drink 64 ounces of water. I can drink alcohol. I can drink calories. I can eat stuff. I can do all these other things. My non-negotiable is drinking 64 ounces of water. Or again, having it be a movement-oriented non-negotiable. I'm going to walk for 30 minutes no matter what's going on. I don't have to work out. I can drink. I can sleep. I can stay up late. I can do whatever, but I'm going to move for 30 minutes. Finding one of those non-negotiables. Now, ideally, bonus points if you can get 3 non-negotiables. That's like the ideal implement is a aspect around protein and or fiber, something that's going to help manage your appetite, being able to have some aspect of movement, and then having something around your hydration. If you can get 3 of those non-negotiables, you are going to be really set up for success. But even if you can just pick one of those, that's where you're going to be able to still have success. And even if you don't get that, avoiding the all or nothing mindset by using the 24-hour rule. Like, okay, cool. That's my 24-hour window. The holidays, the 24 hours. Then come Monday, rolling around, I'm going to implement a re-engagement strategy, a pattern disruption from the holidays, get back to my work. All right, so I'm going to pause there, and we're going to go into some more insight and some data around that, but I want to hit the comments because I see some things coming up. Also some funny. I love all the trolls and the hilarity. Appreciate it. Love it. Yeah, LeBron or Curry even. Dude, I got to be honest, Curry all day. And in general, I go Jordan over LeBron 100 out of 100 times. But I'm old and biased, so take it with a grain of salt. Now, with that being said, I'm curious if you guys have questions around where we can fit the 24-hour rule, how it applies. If you have specific things around the holidays coming up or just life in general. If not, I'm going to kind of dive right back into it. And again, I'll circle back to the comments in the chat as well. So we have, again, this idea of a 24-hour rule that isn't something I've newly kind of mentioned. I've talked about it way in the past, but I wanted to bring it back up because it's so impactful. I think it fits really well here in the pattern disruption side. So let's say your routine got disrupted. Use the 24-hour rule. Give yourself 24 hours, have your experience, and then you go back into a system, a strategy, or a routine. If you don't know what to do, I've got you covered. My entire team has got you covered. If you don't know where to start, that's what we're here for. You can even, if you don't want to trust me, you can go online. I promise you, whether it's AI, Google, whatever, a friend, find something to take action on, have one non-negotiable, do that, and then tag in accountability. That goes back to our 4 variable framework. Again, have awareness of what's going to actually be something you want to address. So awareness around like, okay, I want to change my body fat percentage. For example, I'm like floating almost at 20% body fat right now. I get to work towards being, I feel at my best around 16% body fat. And what gets me there is not knowing that information, but awareness is one. So knowing where my body composition is now. And ultimately, what's even more important is what are some of the things I've done that have allowed my body fat to go up? Stress and sleep being key factors, that having inconsistent sleep, having higher stress variables related to a variety of things, but also allowing myself to eat certain things at certain times of the day that don't align. So having intentionality, knowing I want to, again, lower my body fat percentage, be a certain level of health, I'm going to be intentional with the things related to it. And that's where the action comes into play. Being able to have a non-negotiable. My non-negotiable, no matter what, is I move for 30 minutes every single day, whether it's a walk, stretching, working out, jumping rope, martial arts, whatever. It's 30 minutes every day. That's my buy-in, unless some severe thing would have to come up for that. With that being said, the other principle we want to look at is having the floor, not ceiling concept. What does that mean? So first, the base principle is like, we're not going to be perfect, but we're going to have a floor, a baseline at which we operate. So again, we're not looking at the ceiling of what's going to cap me out, but being able to have a minimum standard, a minimum kind of floor we're working towards. Not I'm going to stop at this point. It's I'm going to always do at least this. So for me, it's 30 minutes of movement, ideally at least walking, but it can be 10 to 20 minutes of movement, depending on where your fitness level is at. Going back to this thing we've talked about in the past, pattern disruptions will be impactful by having a clear measurable, having awareness, combine that with intention, having action, and then accountability, sharing it with you guys here, being able to have, I have 3 coaches that I work with. I have a mindset coach, I have a fitness coach, and I have a nutrition coach. And I'd be able to put all these things together for the things that I care about. So knowing all that, that's kind of the floor. I have a certain baseline of things I do with all of my coaches to move the needle forward, to have overall progress. Now, am I going to be perfect? No. I'll give you a perfect example. With my mindset coach, one of the things I work on right now is 5 out of 7 days per week, I'm using a workbook I have for journaling and being able to have certain active practices for my mind. I don't do it every single day. I mean, sometimes I do. Some weeks I do it 7 out of 7 days, but my goal is to do it 5 out of 7 days per week. And if, for example, this holiday, for whatever reason, I did 4 out of 7 days, I would then take a step back, do 4 out of 7 days for 2, maybe 3 weeks, and then I would reset the goal to 5 out of 7 days and keep doing that until I was at the place I wanted to be. So that's, again, having the accountability. And when I have my scheduled calls, I have a call with my coach after this in a couple of hours. We're going to go over that, amongst other things. So that's the idea of the floor, not the ceiling. Looking at the baseline, the floor at which you're operating, not where you're going to cap things out. All right, again, I'm going to pause here, take another swig, check the comments, and then we're going to get into the next strategy, which is, again, around a little bit of the nutrition side. All right, what's up? I appreciate the love. I see you. What's up, MRI? Love all the funny comments. Kaden, yeah, what's up? Rail, I see you. Mimosa, what's up? Sierra, I think that, or is that Sear Dog? All right. So, and again, feel free to ask questions as we're going through this. With the holiday strategy, another aspect we can look at is nutrition, because that's a big one that comes up. A lot of times people don't have a problem, let's say, getting a workout in or moving or playing. That can be an aspect, but a lot of times people feel like there's apprehension around nutrition. That's what seems to fail them, quote unquote. So it's not the idea of, okay, we aren't going to go to like restrict all day and then binge all night. That's not going to be a very like realistic, sustainable strategy. And I've tried this before. I've tried like, hey, I'm going to not eat all morning, work out, and then go ham for a couple hours. And it just turns into an all day, maybe even a couple days food fest, as it were. And that doesn't feel good either. So it's like internally not going to work. Also, the idea of, let's say, eating as routine and being able to restrict. Okay. So the idea is that we don't want to remove things. We want to be, again, intentional. So what does that mean, being intentional? You can enjoy your food, but having, again, as a non-negotiable, every plate that I have, I'm going to have a palm size worth of protein, or I'm going to chew every bite 10 times at least before I take my next bite, where every time I have a plate, I'm going to have 16 ounces of water. I'm going to have 10 grams of fiber. with every plate. Again, I'm just making up arbitrary things, but these are real things I've worked with people on that are measurable, that are impactful, and that ultimately will help you still have an enjoyable experience. It's being intentional. So being able to also pick your moments. So we're not going to do everything all at once. We're going to pick things. Like, for example, I love pumpkin pie. So around Thanksgiving, I'm going to allow myself to have pumpkin pie kind of no matter what's going on. I'm not going to restrict in that nature. I just enjoy it. Now, if I also want to have that plus some other things, I'm going to be very mindful and intentional. Like, okay, I'm going to chew 10 times. I'm going to have a little extra turkey for my protein. I may not have as many mashed potatoes or sweet potatoes. I'm going to maybe have a little bit more on the pumpkin pie. That's where we get to be intentional. And when we think about that, that's the non-negotiable component, to give you an example of that. And we talked about, again, movement, the buy-in for that. So I also want to go to the same side that I was talking about before that can be a hindrance for me, is the recovery, the stress, and the sleep side of this. So one day isn't honestly going to make or break anything, but what tends to happen around holidays, travel, the atypical pattern disruptions is seldomly is it one day. What realistically happens, this is what we were talking about before, is there's a spiral, a guilt spiral, or I'll do it next week, or I'll start after the holiday season, or I'll start this day. And then that day doesn't really come. So then the same thing happens with recovery and sleep. We stay up later because there's parties, or we don't allow ourselves to sleep in and we sacrifice. I literally did this the other day, if I'm being honest. I didn't even intentionally do it. I ended up getting 5 hours of sleep. I just couldn't sleep. And I did all the things I normally would do. I journaled, I turned off the TV, I did like stretching and self-care. I just couldn't sleep. I was honestly how the day went. Some of my inputs, I was worked up. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to journal a little bit extra and I'm just going to eat this. In a perfect world, I would adjust my next day and where I'd sleep in. I couldn't because I had to bring my kids to school. So there wasn't really a negotiable for that. What I did do is I adjusted my caseload so it wasn't as stressful, so that it wasn't going to be as taxing. But the point of this is being very insightful around our sleep, not necessarily letting sleep compound in that behavior pattern. And again, using that 24-hour rule. If we notice that the sleep's getting away from us, I'm going to immediately implement, okay, 24 hours, and I'm going to be very intentional with my sleep. That's a non-negotiable, for example. Same thing on the recovery side. If we're constantly burnt out, that's where I do like measurables and watches and data. Is like, it's not perfect, but I'll pull up my workload right now, and there's a range. And once it gets past a certain range, like right now I'm in the green zone. Once I notice I'm in the red zone, as far as my workload, I know I have to either be intentional with my sleep or my training, or a combination of the two. So the point here is having some aspect of these areas as non-negotiables and being able to utilize that 24-hour rule on what you're going to focus on. So give it 24 hours and then you implement that ASAP. And being able to reword these things, revamp it, is that you're not under-motivated or you don't lack discipline. You tend to either be under-recovered, that's especially with the motivation, and or lacking a system. That tends to go with the discipline. If you're not motivated, you're usually either underfed, underslept, or overstressed. If you feel like you're lacking discipline, what's really probably going on is you don't have a clear, accessible plan. Because we can have all the plans, and we talked about this in the past. You can have all the information. It's not a lack of information. It's a matter of, is that system going to be actionable based on where you are currently at? So for example, I could have a very clear plan. I'm going to have $1 million at the end of this year net in my bank cash. The plan is simple. If I just save $2,800 a day for 365 days, I will have $1 million. That's a simple plan. That's not a lack of discipline by itself to implement that. It's a matter of, do I have the systems, and is it realistic for me to make, for example, $2,800 a day? And do I have the system in which to do that? So same thing for the fitness side. You want to put on 10 pounds of muscle and you want to lose 30 pounds of body fat. Do you have the system to implement that, especially given where you're at right now? That's again where this information coaching comes into play. Now, if that speaks to you, obviously we have coaching support. You can get to that. Even if you literally just followed around with our workouts, we do body doubling workouts. We have pre-recorded workouts. We even have, for those of you watching, especially on Amazon or TikTok, we have our bands for sale. You can get our workout program. We have a 30-day band workout program. We have a 100-day plan that goes along with that. And even for all of you watching everywhere, if you go to our website, if you go to lifestyleoffitness.com and you just fill out that form, we will send you a 14-day program with a coach assigned to you. You'll jump on a call with me or someone on my team, and you will literally be able to take that plan and be able to have nutrition, training, and a schedule, even supplements included, and have a direction in which you can take it, even if you don't sign up for coaching, you will have a 2-week program that you could just replicate for the entire year, and you could just rerun it, make adjustments, follow along with this free stuff. It literally won't cost you anything, but there's insight to be had, and then just taking action, and it will be refined. It's a matter of just implementing when the pattern gets disrupted. That's why I go back to this 24-hour rule. Having the 24-hour rule will allow you to break a pattern that you don't want, and or when the pattern you wanted got disrupted, you allow it to have that disruption for 24 hours, and then you get back to it and you implement. I would go back to last week's point where we were talking about how do I take a regression? How do I deload to get back into a routine? And it's basically just cutting the volume by 50%. So I'll leave it at that. And again, I'm gonna take another sip of water. We're gonna check the comments, questions, and I'll move into the next piece. And this next one's gonna be the big one. It's like the mindset component here. All right, looks like we got more of the same stuff. I appreciate you guys in general just commenting. And if you don't have questions, or if you have questions, you don't want to share it in a public version, just feel free to always email. I have it on our website as well. You can submit a topic request every week. I look at that. And if we do have a new topic request we haven't done, I'm going to give away $100 on a live stream. I haven't had any new ones come in, but if you want to win an easy $100 gift card to LOF, just submit a topic and we're going to randomly pick someone out. And if there's only one person that submitted it, guess what? You're the guaranteed winner. And I won't even announce your name. I'll just randomly pull a drawing and I'll shoot you an email. Okay. So with that being said, here's the, again, mindset shift. So stop thinking in days, start thinking in weeks, months, and long-term. The caveat I will say for this is for my ADHD or my neurodivergent peeps out there, is not our strong suit. We're very much what's in front of us. Urgency is very motivating. That doesn't align with long-term success though, which is why you might feel challenged with this, which is why I actually offer coaching specifically for neurodivergent ADHD-oriented people. Something I've been doing over the last year, working with certain contracts and companies. I've learned a tremendous amount. I've honestly been working with ADHD-oriented people for like 10 years in martial arts, but specifically in the health and wellness space. And being able to have that awareness of time. Don't think about in days, think about in the long term. And holidays are ultimately a part of your system. They're not outside of it. There's not like, I don't even think of it as cheat days. These are intentional days where you get to enjoy. So you don't start over after the holidays. You're continuing through the holidays. This is factored into the system. This is factored into our schedule with all of the coaching clients that I have, that my team works with, and everything we work through. The ultimate idea is being able to work through this, not after and or around this. Because one day, let's even just do some simple math. There's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of body fat. How much can you actually eat on any one given day? Let's even say you can eat 10,000 calories, which is like, I can, but that's an astronomical amount of food. Let's say you eat 10,000 calories. So the likelihood that's maybe 2 pounds of actual body fat. And if you lose 2 pounds, or if you gain 2 pounds of body fat on one day, you're not going to feel great. And at the end of the day, if we then adjust for the next 2 weeks, if you do 500 calorie deficit every single day for 2 weeks, you'll be down those 2 pounds. So yes, one day for 2 weeks, but in the grand spectrum of things, you'll for a net year still be in a place where you're going to be down body fat and up muscle, so long as you're sticking to the system. You're utilizing these principles. You have a floor you're operating off of where it's a buy-in for the day, a non-negotiable. So I want to, again, pause there, get another sip, and give you some real life examples you can use going into this weekend, that you can use for future holidays as well, where they're watching this live, the replay, when you're watching this. This is kind of meant to be like an evergreen style. I mean, it's always going to be good. It's always going to be applicable and accessible. Even as new data comes out, I will always update things, but some of these things are just time tested and true for like over a decade that I've seen, almost 2 decades in the health industry. We're in the health and wellness space. So let's take family dinner. That's going to be one. Take travel days as another, kids schedule chaos, and a late night. These are 4 variables that will inevitably come up around holidays and or travel. So number 1, family dinners. Let's say it's whatever holiday and everyone brought stuff over. You got your favorite meals. How are you going to navigate that? There's probably things you're looking forward to. I'll use my example. I really look forward to pumpkin pie. I like pumpkin pie. I also like peanut butter cups. Whether it's homemade, whether it's store-bought, whether it's peanut butter pies. I love peanut butter and chocolate. So that's something I look forward to as well. Knowing that, I'm not going to just fast all day and then only eat that and make myself suffer. What I do, though, is a non-negotiable for me is I move 30 minutes before the meal and after the meal. That's a very simple, like, cool. I'm going to, before I go back for seconds, I'm going to go for a little walk. Another thing I found extremely impactful is hydration, being able to drink water. So I have 3 basic non-negotiables. I eat my body weight in protein, especially on those days. So I'm 200-ish pounds, maybe 205, 210 right now. I float like maybe 207. So I'll eat 200 grams of protein, and non-negotiable. That's something I'm getting in. Protein shakes, turkey, whatever protein source you got, you're going to have your protein. That's my non-negotiable. Find a nutrition non-negotiable, hydration, and movement non-negotiable. You'll be set up for all of these situations. So I have protein throughout the day. I've been feeding myself. Number 2, I'm staying hydrated. I'm drinking half of my body weight in fluid ounces, whether that's just water, whether it's lately, I've been honestly enjoying Diet Snapple. You can judge me if you want to. I like it. I even like Diet Coke. I don't drink that all the time, but seltzer, water, you can flavor water, put fruit in a filter and just have some flavored water that way, whatever works for you. I think honestly, cucumber and lemon, that's the move. But being able to have half my body weight, so at least 100 ounces in water. The third thing is movement. Again, I mentioned at least 30 minutes of movement, but ideally I'm doing it before the dinner that I enjoy, like especially when I'm having pumpkin pie, and 30 minutes after especially. And in a perfect world, this is not a non-negotiable, as a bonus. I like it to be a strength training oriented, high impact, calorically demanding meal, so that as I'm eating these things, my body's replenishing the glycogen it used from the workout. So that's, again, a preference. Now we can take the same principle and apply it again on travel days. It'll slightly adjust. Especially on travel days, I tend to eat lighter. So I'm very intentional the day before and the day after, but that day of, again, I'm hydrating, especially when I'm flying. Here's the caveat. It's not super fun to have to always go to the bathroom, but when you're flying, your body is going to potentially retain fluid. You're also going to feel dehydrated depending on your electrolyte intake. So make sure you're getting fluids in and you're moving, especially on a plane. If it's more than like 5-6 hours, your risk of a variety of things, I'm not going to diagnose stuff, can go up. So you want to move, even if it's stand up, stretch a little bit, go to the bathroom, come back. It's good for you. It's in the same orientations of hydration, nutrition, movement. You apply the same principle in all these arenas, you will have success. For travel days, even if you're driving, let's say you're driving to the in-laws, you're driving to go for a holiday weekend, being able to hydrate, being able to, when you stop, move, even if it's stretching. Now, ideally it's 30 minutes, but it doesn't have to be 30 minutes straight. It can be 30 minutes throughout the day. So it can be 3 minutes, 10 times throughout the day. And start with what feels accessible. If 3 minutes total feels accessible, start with that. But set a movement-oriented goal, set a hydration-oriented goal, and then set a food-oriented goal. So for example, if it's especially driving, I tend to lean on protein shakes, hard-boiled eggs, string cheese, sandwiches, some baseline things you can get almost anywhere. Same thing in airlines and flights. I eat pretty consistent stuff. And you can even, bonus points, you do a little bit of extra research ahead of time. Nowadays with AI, and even, again, if you jump on a call, we have so many resources inside of our coaching program. We have AI things that'll tease out and suggest to you based on where you're going, here's the things to get. Your coach will be there for you. We have so many resources around that. Now let's go to the kids' schedule chaos. This is every week we deal with the kids' schedule, but sometimes it gets a little more chaotic. This is where being able to stay calm and being able to have a baseline operational non-negotiable. For me, it's the pause, breathe, assess technique, which is I'm going to pause, take a nice deep breath, and then I'm going to assess what I want to do before I do the thing. Which, again, I'm not perfect at this. This is something I get to continuously work on. If you ask my kids or my family, they would tell you, obviously, this is something I get reps at, and it's not a dialed-in perfect system. But that's how you can handle when it comes to the kids' chaos as a parent. Plans change, schedules change. This happened to me yesterday. I was going to have a meeting this morning. I had to reschedule it because my daughter ended up going to bed later, being up all night. It was like a tougher sleep night. And thankfully, the meeting was able to be adjusted. If it wasn't working, I would have been able to just wake up being on low sleep and make it happen. And what I would have done, similar to how I kind of operate, and I was just talking about, I would find ways to be moving. I would continuously hydrate, and then I would have my baseline hit my nutrition mark. For me, it's protein. Protein's a big one because if I'm eating my protein, A, I'm making sure my muscle growth is staying on track, and B, I'm more than likely going to stay full. That's why I'm so big on it. Again, depending on where your needs are and your body's health, you may or may not want to go for 1 pound of lean body mass or 1 pound or 1 gram per lean body mass, pound of body mass. It's an easy formula. Now going to, again, the late nights. The one thing I will say is a caveat for late nights, assuming you might even be drinking. Again, I don't endorse drinking. I don't think it's a good idea. If you're going to be having a late night, especially if it's a recreational late night, you might be drinking. That's not the day you want to do weight training, by the way. If you plan on consuming alcohol, alcohol is going to impede your body's ability to recover and grow its muscle tissue. So that's the day you want to have a rest day and or a cardio day, or possibly a HIIT day, a high intensity interval day that's not very heavily muscle growth oriented, not very anabolically driven, because alcohol is going to impede your body's ability to recover. Cardio is a great day for that. Like I see, especially here in Nashville, they'll have like half marathons, 5Ks, like a brewery kind of thing. That's kind of a day where it makes sense. Now, it's still, you don't want to be in a calorie surplus, but that's kind of where you compare those things together. And if you're going to stay up late, again, ideally also hydrate. If you even are drinking, for every drink you have 16 ounces of like hydrated, non-alcohol oriented beverage. And again, I want to say, I'm not saying you should be drinking. I'm just speaking to those that obviously, if you are, this is a reality, right? So I want to like just help offer insight to that. There are also some things that you can take, and there's some things you can do to help support. Your body naturally detoxifies and cleanses itself. However, there's basic ingredients you can give it to support that. Some nutrients, some B vitamins are a great one. Beets can be another really helpful one because of the vasodilation of it, especially the B vitamins. Being able to basically have fruits and vegetables and a high amount of protein is going to always, I can't say always, very high percentage of times serve you and work in your favor. So if you plan on drinking, be mindful, have low protein or high protein, be low, like kind of on the processed garbage. Get your fruit, get your vegetables. And again, ideally match it on a day of movement that's more cardiovascular based. And ideally factor for getting good night's sleep. A lot of times when we have a late night, we may even wake up early the next day to go to church, to go to an event, to a dinner, to whatever. Make sure you're getting good night's sleep the day before, the day after, ideally whenever possible. If you are having a rough late night and you're not getting sleep, that's not the move. Now, on the flip side, let's take a late night, but it's a work late night and or it's a productivity-oriented late night. For example, you are traveling and you're working late and you're at an event. I'll think of one of my coaches specifically who tends to travel for his work, and he has early mornings and late nights, and it really impacts his ability to get quality sleep. So what I always offer when we talk about these things is being able to focus on what we control. So saying, all right, cool. If I have to be up early, I'm going to try as best as I can to get to sleep as soon as possible. If I have to be out late because of the job and I'm going to be up early, being able to schedule for naps, if that's possible. If it's not, keep your stress level low. Try and delegate things where you can. Again, make sure you're hydrating and eat pretty simple and non-processed to not exacerbate the stress response system when it comes to those late nights, especially if you're not getting good quality sleep. So again, that's covering how I would personally handle and have handled the family dinners, travel days, kids schedule chaos, and even late nights. So to recap, again, it's just basically have 3 non-negotiables in a perfect world. Have at least one in a floor principle, the floor concept, 1 non-negotiable. Just pick one of these, have a non-negotiable. That's what you do in any one of these scenarios. In an ideal world, you have 3 non-negotiables. 1 that covers hydration, 1 that covers nutrition, 1 that covers movement. And where I see also, I'm going to call out a couple of things here, some common pitfalls, as it were, is skipping meals to then be able to overeat later. Now, I'm going to be honest, this one is one that I can still gravitate towards, not even intentionally skipping meals, but I'll honestly take today as a perfect example. I've eaten twice today, which is not bad, but it's 6:30. So ideally I would have eaten 3 times or 4 by the end of this stage of the day in a normal kind of situation. However, I know my schedule and I kind of plan for this. So I didn't break my fast until about 2:00. I was also drinking protein shakes with my coffee. I don't count that as breaking a fast. That's technically meal number 1. So that's counterintuitive thinking meal number 1 isn't breaking a fast, but I put protein in my coffee. That's how I get basic protein in. Coffee, I do it. I finish up by 1:00. That's the latest I'll have caffeine. Otherwise, I'll be up all night. I've experimented with this. 1:00 is my baseline. Like that's where I get to cut things off. Okay. So being able to have that is where I found it impactful. Then the temptation was today, I made a sandwich, a turkey and cheese, high fiber bread sandwich. So I got about 20 grams of fiber. I've got about 70 grams of protein between the cheese and the turkey and the bread. So I got 100 grams of protein in already today. I got 30 grams for my protein shake, and I got 70 between all the stuff, the turkey, the cheese, and the bread that I had. and I got about 20 grams of fiber. So already just from 2 meals, I got 100 grams of protein, I got 20 grams of fiber, and I'm less than 1,000 calories. So I'm not saying that's perfect. I don't like calorie counting, but I do like to pay attention to my protein intake. The point is, after this, I'm going to have a window of time where I'm going to have my bigger meal of the day. I'm going to be, again, intentional with that. And instead of just hammering a whole pizza pie, because we had like leftover pizza for my daughter's birthday recently, I'm going to have a slice of pizza with a turkey bowl that I'm going to make. That's going to be 99% ground turkey, chili mix, black beans, peppers and onions, and I'm probably going to mix in some cauliflower rice. And then I'm also going to have some quinoa black bean chips with a little bit of medium sauce. That's like 15 calories per serving. So again, I'll mix in, I'll still have carbs. I worked out before. I did 5x5 bench press and deadlift before this. So I'll be able to get some energy in, recalibrate my glycogen, get protein. And this is where, again, the temptation is, if I would have skipped my sandwich meal, I would have been more inclined to like house way more food at dinner. So don't skip meals to overeat later. Be able to still let yourself eat. Like, I'm honestly, even for dessert, I'm going to have some peanut butter cups and a bran muffin and some dehydrated mangoes. But if I would have fasted all day without eating anything and then ate that, I'd be eating way more on the dessert and the dinner side than if I would allow myself, which I did today, to eat throughout the day. So that's usually a pitfall I see, number one. Number two, I'll just take the whole weekend off. The holidays, I'll pick it back up on Monday after the holidays. Do what you can. Have your floor, have your non-negotiable. Move for 30 minutes, no matter what's going on, even if it's at the airport or if it's in the car. Like, find a way to make it happen. That's your non-negotiable, and or adjust your non-negotiable for the travel. Saying, okay, cool, I'm not going to do 30 minutes of walking today. I'm going to do 10 stretches at different points throughout the day. That'll maybe take 5 minutes. But don't just say, I'll take the whole weekend off. Utilize the 24-hour rule. If you even have a day off that you're like kind of going off, quote unquote, it's scheduled, and allow yourself to have 24 hours, fine, but then you're back to it. Don't allow 24 to become 48 to become 72. That's the pitfall I see for most people, is it becomes a I'll do it later concept that is very contagious. Another one I see is trying to be perfect, the all or nothing, the perfectionism. We don't even get started, and or I wasn't perfect, so I'm just going to scratch it. What I think is interesting is what I see for most people is when they're training, they tend to eat a little bit better, but if they get injured or they take time off, they tend to allow their nutrition to slide. That's the opposite. When you are training, you can be a little bit more adaptable with your nutrition. Even though technically like exercise is like 10% of your total energy expenditure, it's still an impactful 10% that compounds over time, depending on how you do it. So what I see for people is like, oh, you know what, I'm going to eat a salad and all these things when I'm working out. It's like, when you want to eat a salad is like ideally when you're not working out, because you're not burning more calories. You're moving less. That's when you want to really be dialed in with things. I mean, ideally you're intentional all the time. But that's where I see an interesting pitfall, is like trying to be perfect, and when you're not, it's the all or nothing. And then lastly, not having a plan going in. It's like, I'm just going to play it by ear. I'll figure it out as I go, going into the holidays, going into travel, just seeing, I'll see what they have available. Like, it's like, no, have an intentional plan. And this kind of segues into the last little piece I'll touch on, is having a simple, actionable plan. Being intentional and action-oriented is the move. So this is what you can actually do. If you do nothing else this weekend, I want you to do this. I want you to set a protein goal. I want you to move your body for a minimum of 3 to 5 minutes every day. And I want you to drink at least a quarter of your body weight in fluid ounces. So I'm 200 pounds. That would be 50 ounces. So drink 25% of your body weight in fluid ounces, hit at least half of your protein grams of your body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, you'd have at least 100 grams of protein. If you're 200 pounds, you'd have at least 50 ounces of water, and you're walking or moving for at least 3 to 5 minutes. That's like super baseline, non-negotiable, bare minimum. That's the one thing I want you to focus on. If you want more adjustments, you're a little bit more advanced. You're trying to move from like 18% to 15% body fat. You're trying to move 15% body fat, 10% body fat. We would dial those things up a lot more. But again, setting a very clear, non-negotiable floor that you're operating from. And again, if you deviate from that, you have a pattern disruption, use the 24-hour rule. Give yourself 24 hours, then get back to it. So this is something that we utilize with our fighters, but this is applied across the board. And I just wanted to invite that for you guys. All right, so I'm going to pause here. I'm going to check into the comments, and we'll start to bring it home. Yeah, ideally not yet. Ideally just water, but there you go. that's pretty much it, y'all. I'm going to bring it home from there. Again, I'll be back next week talking about what do you do after the holidays, how we're quote unquote rebounding, utilizing that 24-hour rule to take action. And yeah, exactly. If you fall, I don't even like thinking of it like there is no wagon to be on or off. That's the, again, mindset I want to shift. But I appreciate you pulling that up, Bulba, is there is actually no wagon. There is no like, hey, this is the path per se. It's, hey, this is the system. If the system has a breakdown, we revamp the system, but there's no perfect path. There's no wagon. There's no like, we're on this trail. It's cool. We're carving the path along the way. So that's being able to adapt around it and just having some baseline non-negotiables. And guess what? Even if the non-negotiable breaks, it's not like, oh, I fell off the wagon. It's like, no, I learned something from this. And then I implement my 24-hour rule. 24-hour rule is I allow myself to have 24 hours, and then I'm getting back to a very clear non-negotiable. And again, the formula to that is we have awareness around what it is that we are focusing on, whether it's we're counting our bites, whether it's measuring our body fat percentage, whether it's how many push-ups I can do, how many pull-ups, whatever it is you care about, you have awareness around it. You create an intentional goal. I, for intention, want to be able to, play with my kids till I'm 100. And be able to hold them over my head. That's like another version of an intention. Or I want to have 15% body fat. Or I just want to be able to be pain-free. I hear all of these come up quite a bit. Or I want to be able to have more energy. Some of these are a little bit vaguer than others. Ideally, you're having very specific ones. So instead of saying, hey, I want to have more energy, I want to be at a 5 out of 5 energy 90% of the time. And then we have action around that. What's the process that facilitates that? I'm going to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night by being able to not look at TVs 2 hours before I go to bed, because you can't always control how much sleep you get. And I'm going to be held accountable by either having a scheduled check-in call with my coach, with my doctor, with a friend on social media, with a meetup, with wherever, but having some sense of accountability. So again, the 4 steps: awareness, intention, action, accountability. That will deliver you results. When that gets deviated, when a pattern disrupts that, give yourself 24 hours, then get back to it. And that's pretty much it, y'all. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate you guys. Again, you can hit up our website, lifestyleoffitness.com. Jump on a call with me, someone on the team. I'll hook you guys up, not only with insight on the call, but you'll also, as a thank you for me to you, you'll get a 14-day program, training workout, meal plan. You'll get a coach assigned to you, giving you accountability. And if you don't like it, that's cool. It'll be yours. You do what you want with it. And if you like it, great. We'll have coaching options for you. We have a whole awesome path. But in the meantime, you'll at least have resources. And wherever you're watching this, if you're not already, please follow, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And then you can get notified when we're going live in the future. If you have questions on content, or you have questions you want to see me address, go to our website, and we have a tab where you can submit a request, a topic. And if you do that, you're going to be in the running for a $100 gift card. Each week when we have someone submit a topic, I announce a winner. I give them a $100 gift card. I'll email them privately. So you don't even have to put your name out there if you don't want people to know your name. I'll make it private. I got you. All right. That's going to do it. I'll see y'all next week. Have a happy holiday, whatever you're celebrating. If you're celebrating, if you're just kind of getting travel on, safe travels, and see y'all in the next one. Peace, everybody.